Evie here. I am hoping that, hold on, I'm mute microphone. Just making sure all my settings are correct before, snow, save. Okay, so we should be good. Oh, just making sure all my settings are correct. Hold on. Okay, we good. We cool as cucumbers now. I think I got my little icy ball back in action again. Today it's going to be a camera down day, and today I am wanting to talk about these historical deck madness that we've been going through in these past few days. All I see is videos of everybody with their Visconti Sforza, Cariel Viscontes, and their El Mini Gala decks, and I'm just like mouth watering, going, I just need to jump on board with all this historical deck madness that we are going through right now, and that's why I titled our little live chat today as historical deck madness, and just kind of having a little art tarot and coffee morning and having a little bit of a deck rant and a little deck madness rant going on today. So I'm sorry that you guys can't really see me, but I am here, I promise you. I'm gonna, like, one more deck that I have to pull out, and I'm gonna start, yeah. I got actually a few more decks that I can pull out, but at least this will get us started to talk about some of our historical decks and our historical deck collections and things like that. And I got all my Elementi Gallo decks out here, and except for one, I forgot one. Here I am. It's okay. You can stay here for a little bit. Willow Weird, Thrifty Witch. I am just so excited about that challenge that she has out there. If everybody doesn't know, she has a thing out there on YouTube right now saying the Confessions of a Tarot Addict, and it is wonderful. It's so much fun. I think that everybody that's at least involved on the YouTube tarot community that can film and be present in front of a camera, it would be wonderful to watch everybody doing that. Just to throw that out there as advertisement to her real quick as I find a deck. Gotcha. I got all my decks for my historical recreation decks, and that's kind of what I was wanting to pull out today, was my historical recreation deck collection. It doesn't have to be the original, but it at least is a copy of the original. So I'm gonna first start off with the Solobusca tarot. Which one is older? The Tarocco Metelli, or I think the Solobusca still outwins that one. It's as far as age goes. So we're gonna start off with the Solobusca Tarot and talk a little bit about this deck. I really don't know too much. So when I'm walking through these decks, everyone, I'm just going to warn you, this is not going to be like, I totally historically know everything about this deck, and I'm going to tell you all the historical significance about this deck. No, that's not the kind of chat I'm going to have today. I'm just going to lightly talk about it as a ignorant outsider's point of view when I'm talking about my historical deck collection. I don't know too many of the historical nuances of all my decks, and that I'm going to show today. And so I'm not going to talk from a place of historical nuances. I'm just talking about more as a practicality and reading for our modern day world. You know, how do we could transform something like the Solovuzga into our modern day world? Or what could we do, or what do we do for something like the Solovuzga or the Turco Metelli or some the Visconti Sforzas and stuff? How do we could interpret some of these imageries, these historical imageries, into our modern day viewpoints or in our modern day world? So I'm going to talk more of it in that standpoint versus a standpoint of, oh, this is a a blah 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 blah. Patrick does a beautiful job of historical blah blah blahs, but I'm really not good with historical blah blahs. And so here's my box. I think this is still available, honestly. This is the Lo Scarabeo, the newest Lo Scarabeo edition of this deck. And El Manigallo has an edition of this deck, but their version of this deck, even though it's handcrafted and handmade, I think it's like $120 or more for and then that's not including shipping too. So let me see if I could get the camera to stop focusing on the background. There we are. So here's the full card for the Solovuzga, and this deck is based off of these old gods and goddesses of, I think, Rome. I think they're gonna be Roman gods and goddesses, but this deck is all based off of old goddess and goddesses from Italy, I believe. So they would be Roman, and so they would be like the Jupiter, the Venus, Mars. I'm just trying to think of all the Greek association names, or Pluto, you know, like the planet names. Think planet names when you think of these people, I think. And so, oh wow, Amazon has it for 200. Wowza. I got this on pre-order, and this one was still expensive at $35 on pre-order. I think they might have sold out or something. So this deck is like that collector's deck. So probably they are sold out of the Solovuzga by this point. I don't know. I'm glad that she researched it for me, because I would have not known this deck was not available in a fairly decent price. And the backing is really nice. The backing of this deck is really, really nice. And I haven't read with this deck yet, the Solovuzga yet. I have not done any readings with it. I'm just kind of trying to sit there, meditate with it, and I really want to actually sit down with a pen and notebook paper with this deck and actually try to figure out which gods and goddesses are the majors of the major arcana. So so that's what the Solovuzga is really based off of. And this is like one of the first tarot decks. Hi, Patrick. I told everybody that you're the go-to person for historical blah blahs. I'm just I'm just the person that is just telling it in a modern standpoint, you know, from an outsider, ignorant, modern standpoint's point of view on the Solovuzgas and all my tarot decks that I'm doing today. And I said to people that if you want to know historical stuff about certain decks, go to you and watch your channel, because I don't know too many of the historical nuances. I just know that the Solovuzga is based off of gods and goddesses, and so I see that a lot of my usual crowd is starting to come in, but it's my art, coffee, and tarot talk about my historical recreations, since it is something that everybody has been doing. So, love you too, Patrick. You had some really cool videos lately, by the way. I love your um, living wheel and your working with the decks too. So, this one I can't figure out the goddess or god either. I didn't really uh and so I don't know the god or goddess of the full card, but this is like the full card, and this one I think they have some of the names in Italian up here, and then this one is um this is probably equivalent number one, but I don't think this is what we think of it as the magician card. This would have been in the position of the magician card, our modern day position, magician card. But this is not probably the same god or goddess for the magician that we know today, is what I'm trying to say. I know that our modern day magician cards is usually Mercury or Hermes. I think that's more Thoth like influences or Golden Dawn influences later. I don't think that many of the historical decks, when we're talking about historical decks, they're going to not be that same association for like things like the magician card. And this one is also another god or goddess that I do not know. I do see that there's a skull, and that this particular deity is probably kind of looks to me like this one would be more associated with a warrior or a god of death or a deity of death. So this is what I'm basically observing just by not knowing anything historically about this deck. I could see that this one is more of like a warrior or a deity of death. This one is in the position of the Empress. And of course, this one is a dude. And it actually has a name. It's Lin Pio. Limpio, or he might be a hero too. Gods and heroes maybe too. So they might be also heroes of the time. Like the stories of King Arthur, the heroes, the legends, the man, the myth. And so these look to me like also a deck of heroes too, as well as deities. And this is just a beautiful deck all around. But it's definitely something. This is kind of something that we would recognize as the Chariot in a way, and it's even numbered something like the Chariot. And so it's kind of interesting. You could almost say that there is nothing like our modern day tarot associations associated with the Solovusca. But there are some little things that you're like, oh, haha. And this is one of the cards that I would think would be very close to what we think of the Chariot, but this is probably not what we would have. They would have not interpreted this as the Chariot that we know today. And it's actually kind of funny. This card is what we know as the Strength card, and this one is Nerone. I think that's the deity or hero associated with this, and it looks like and maybe even an emperor or something. I don't know, but this image is actually very interesting because in the Kabbalistic Visions Tarot, they took influence of this card because it was kind of a graphic image of a woman violently giving birth and forcing this birth to happen. And in the Solovusca, they had this too. And I immediately made the association like, oh, they took influence of the Solovusca there. I'm just listening to the kids play and bounce downstairs because apparently crying and playing and bouncing sounds so much similar. This would be very similar to what we think of the hermit card almost. I would think this would be more like that hermit card, but this one is for sure more. I'm trying to read backwards and also my camera screen. I'm just going to do a brief flip through of this deck. I'm not really going to talk too much more about it because I got many other decks to talk about here today. I actually got like 6 set out. So this is probably going to be a good day just to say I got some other decks that we could talk about. But this, I'm pretty... and this is also a very interesting image too, because I see this particular deity or image and some of our later decks and our later historical decks. Like Elle has a really amazing collection of historical goodies, and as well as Patrick. But Elle has like this archive of historical goodie decks, and there is, I think I have it in one of my tarot decks. Maybe it's the Metella that has this particular deity or whatever in it, but it's this guy with a beard and with the bat wings or the wings. So that is a prevalent tarot thing that I've seen too. And so I do want to sit down with a notebook, paper one of these days and just kind of get into the cards themselves, and just learn about the gods and goddesses behind this deck. But that's like a project in itself. And just learning about those deities. And so then you get immediately into the minor arcana. And this kind of is interesting because it looks like there's 2 cup cards here in a way. They look like 2 cup cards. I don't know if that is yeah. Oh my goodness. I would have gotten confused there. The time card, yes. Patrick got that. And so this is like an illustrated, I say that loosely, deck. And this I don't know what this would have meant to somebody back then, but we could only guess now what these card images and stuff like that means. Tarot is a language, and some of this language that we know about is kind of lost to time, and sometimes we do have some idea what that language is, but like language in our everyday speech, like Old English versus New English and things like that. All right, have a good one, Patrick. Like our Old English versus New English, we don't use the these, thys, thous anymore in our everyday modern English, but back in the day, that's what we did. But and tarot is kind of that same way. They use the these, thys, thous, and those, and that's what we're seeing is that those old speech and those old relations and those old tarot associations, and we're kind of like sitting there going, scratching our heads, going, is this some religious context, or is this some or another context and all in its own of it? Is it talking about their legends, myths, gods and goddesses? Is it more pagan? And some of those pagan things are very very different than the pagan things that stories and stuff that we are used to today. So it is a very interesting deck, and I think this deck is like that kickoff of those historical goodies. And I have so many other decks to talk about today, so we're going to go ahead and put the solo Fusco away and talk about some of the other decks. I'm trying to go in historical order, as much of the historical order as I can today. I might mess up a few cards, so don't worry. I might mess up a few decks. And the second one that I have is the Metelli, or the Traco Metelli, the Bologna 1660 deck. And I have a theory about this deck, and this is more of a theory versus a truth to the story. A little truth in the story pump. Da-dum bump. So this is more of a theory that I think this deck versus the Solobusca, which I think might be more of a I think the Solobusca was actually used for card readings because there's a lot of gods, goddesses, heroes, or maybe even the Solobusca is more of a picture book, and I'm just blowing smoke out of my butt. Back in the day, it's an old picture book, like the cards is something that, somebody sat down and just, like flashcards, to children or something like that, and they talked about the stories, or it's like story cards, basically. This one, however, the Metelli, or the Tarocco Metelli, no, Terracino Metelli, my bad. Hi, Tiger's Abyss. The Terracino Metelli is, I think this one is a gaming deck versus, hi, Mimi. This one, I believe, is a gaming deck, whereas the Solobusca, I think, was more of probably a storytelling deck. And this one, I think, was actually more of a card game deck versus the Solobusca. The reason why I say this one, I think, is more of a card game deck versus the Solobusca is because, one, the backs kind of seem like it would be more like our modern day gaming deck. I'm not saying that the tarot cards back then wouldn't have these kind of backs, because there's some other decks that are clearly for reading, had similar backs to these, and they were meant for tarot readings. But I do think that the majors have very more recognizable characters to them that you could say, oh, that is the Emperor card, or oh my goodness, that's the Hierophant card, and things like that, and oh my goodness, that's Cupid, and things like that. So this is more, I think this deck particular, the Metelli, is definitely more tarot, recognizable tarot images, versus the Solobusca. So this is like, I think, whereas the Solobusca, you could say, is the grandfather of the 78. I think this is the deck that tarot was based off of, or this tarot structure that was based off of, because there are some more recognizable images to the Metelli than the Solobusca. So I think that's my personal opinion, but I could be wrong. That when you're talking about decks that are more, this was definitely the father of the tarot, I think, because you could say that's the Chariot, oh my goodness, and oh my goodness, that's the Justice card, whereas the Solobusca, you can't really do it as much. And oh my goodness, that's the like that Father Time, Hermit, or whoever he is, and we saw similar images of him like in the Solobusca. So, but the reason why I say this one was more of a gaming deck than the Solobusca is because of the minor arcana. The majors, I am like, oh my goodness, these are recognizable things for tarot, for divination reading. I think it's really in the minors, when we get to the minors. This is Death card, of course. Like that Temperance. I Renewal. And then this is like that Devil. And you could almost say that might be like that Tower, or that Destruction. And that's that Father Time. This is more Hermit, I think. And this is more of the moon, more of the sun, more of that angel or just judgment. And this is more of that Hercules in the world, I think. And then when you get to the minor cards, they do not, all of this has no twos, threes, fours, fives at all. 2 through 5 does not exist in the stack, whereas only ones, six, sevens, eights, nines, tens, and then you get into the major, not majors, but the core cards. So I have a theory, and this is my theory that I said on live chat at one time, that it dawned to me. I read Lenormand often, very, very often, and I just finished a client reading with a Lenormand deck. But I have a theory this is also probably the first Lenormand deck. Maybe this is also not just the first tarot deck, something that we recognize as tarot, but something that we recognize as a Lenormand too. Because in the Lenormand reading system, or when you read Lenormand cards, traditionally, you don't read, they don't have the cards 2 through 5. You have only ones, 6 through the courts. You do not have any of those Lenormand things, other cards in there. So I think this squishy. I probably should stay out of that conversation right there. So that's what I personally think, because as a personal opinion, so that this is some also the that's why I also say it's a gaming deck, because we kind of already know that the Lenormand before it was Lenormand today, or Lenormand today, was probably a gaming deck. So and then you got these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful courts. I love that Knight of Cups. I love that Queen, and they kind of have that almost Middle Eastern ness to them. They're very beautiful, and it kind of is otherworldly. It's very beautiful. But yeah, this is one of my favorite historical decks of all time, just because of all this. You could almost say that's tarot and that's Lenormand too. So I love that this could have been that predecessor to the reason. Did you know? I just was guessing, Miss Willard, when the Thrifty Witch. I'm not really basing on this on any kind of historical things. I'm just basing on how many cards there are in the minors and the majors. So I'm pretty and so it's really, really interesting. I just love this deck, and because I think this is like that precursor, in my opinion. It's precursor. I think it's the precursor to Lenormand and tarot, or modern day tarot, what we know as tarot, because of the amount of cards that are in the minors, and then also plus majors. It's like Lenormand plus majors in a way, because there's definitely some recognizable images as a tarot deck here, in a way. And then this is the Metelli. Yeah. And Patrick, I was saying that I have a theory that the Metelli is tarot, the first grandfather of tarot and the Lenormand, because it has 22 majors, or 22 majors arcana, like the tarot, and you could have some recognizable images as like tarot. And then the minors, they only have one. They have the ace, but they don't have 2 through 5, which is very similar to the Lenormand deck. So I think this is definitely. Do you have the deck with the muses and the majors? I'm trying to remember which one that is. I might have to. Muses and the majors. I probably do. I just don't have that on. I don't know which one you're referring to. That's all. So it's very possible that this is the grandfather or the father of what we know as tarot. Very possible. I'm just speculating, everyone. I have a theory. Buffy was cool with Dirty Witch, whereas I think the Solabusca was the first 78. I just think the Grayscale and Melanie Gallo. I don't have that one, unfortunately, Miss Greenwell. I think the Solabusca is the I'm just listening to my kids cry for a second. The Solabusca is the first 78, but I think this one is more related to tarot and Lenormand. So that's my opinions. My opinions only. And then I have two things that I've acquired recently, and I think this is my next one on my list as far as historical decks go. Is look at what I got. I got a El Menegalo Visconti Sforza Tarocchi version, or Tarocchi version, or it's the smaller version of it. Ugh, that brightness of the sun is gonna kill you. Yeah. So I think this is the Visconti Sforza Mel Menegalo. This is the Tarocchi version. This is something I found on eBay. This is not the really big deck that Patrick has. This is the little mini Visconti deck that version of the deck that Patrick has. So the box is great. Okay. I got to tell you guys about my version of the Visconti Sforza. This one is in really, really good condition for someone kept it in really, really good condition from 2002. However, whoever pre-owned my version of this Visconti Sforza had stored this deck in like a moldy basement or a wet basement. Yeah, right? Like, oh my god, like, no way. I got this deck in the mail, and I opened up the deck, and I smelled this moldy basement smell with my particular version of the Tarocchi Visconti Sforza. So, yeah, this one has a moldy basement smell. The edges look great. But I'm like, it's the smell of dirty basement is like nauseating with this version, the deck that I have with the Visconti, unfortunately. So I'm like, oh, like handling the deck, going, yeah. So whoever stored this deck, it was probably their moms or somebody that died or passed away. And they just kept this deck in a wet, damp basement. It's sad. It really is sad because this deck still held up to the test of time and is in very good condition. Don't get me wrong. But it definitely has the smell of mold and wet basement. And so actually one or two of my cards in the back had evidence of like that mold on it too, almost. Not like bad, but it was store it in a tin with coffee ground may work. Okay, then I'll have to do that, Mimi. But yeah, so this is a beautiful deck. This is I love the size of this particular version of my Visconti Sforza because this size is Eevee hand size. And I don't need the big deck, and I really want to use my deck. I really love the Visconti Sforza, and I really love Il Menegalo decks. I just wanted to really use the deck. So I'm so glad that I got this. This particular version of the Visconti Sforza. It's not as cool as Patrick's. Patrick's gold background is a little bit more gold. This one is a little bit more matte versus that beautiful gold finish that he has. But it's somewhere between the... It's a great size for using, for sure. And I think that the quality, Il Menegalo quality, you just can't beat it, even for the size and what it is. It is just a beautiful, beautiful deck. And I shuffled this. I'm sorry, everyone. I shuffled this one. And so I'm just going to have to flip through and stuff. And so I'm glad that what style would you use with this deck? If I were to read this deck for a client, I would actually use it as a Marseille deck or a Pip deck. I would totally use this deck more as a Marseille or Pip deck. And this, Patrick is a big fan of this Visconti Sforza, by the way, everyone. If you want to know all the historical nuances of this deck, then I would recommend you to watch his videos of the Visconti. I am like nothing compared to what Patrick knows about this deck. I know nothing. So I would use this more as definitely use this more as a Pip deck or a deck like a Marseille deck smile. For sure. Hooker deck. And I just love it. It's just so wonderful. And this is also has very this also when you're talking about has very recognizable tarot images, or what images that we know as tarot. This Visconti Sforza for sure has that. Patrick, you're gonna have to tell me what year is the Visconti Sforza. It doesn't have it in my back. It says Milano 10. It says 15 Silico. So, what is the year of the Visconti, Patrick? I don't remember. But this is definitely more a this deck in particular is definitely more recognizable as what we know of tarot. And I'll show you guys a little bit of my shuffling with this deck. A little bit of shuffling. Okay, mid 1450s. See, Patrick is my go-to guy. So he says mid 1450s is the Visconti Sforza. And so that actually is between the Metelli and the Solabusca. So I probably was wrong when I said that this was after the Metelli or the Metella. So I do the sideways shuffle with this deck. I tried to rifle shuffle it, and I just... Okay, so Solabusca is in the late 1400s, and this is in the mid 1500s. So this is more... Okay, so I kind of got my historicalness timeline messed up, everyone. It would be probably the Solabusca first. Not Solabusca first. It would be the Visconti Sforza first, then Solabusca, and then last it would be the Metelli. And so I got my timeline wrong, tarot timeline wrong. So it'd be Solabusca. No, not Solabusca. Visconti Sforza. I can't talk today. I need to learn how to speak Italian. Visconti Sforza. Solabusca. Metella. And then I have a last one here that is not going to fit in the camera. It is the Kerry Yale Visconti, which is probably safe to say 15th century, which is somewhere in between these two. So that's my next one that I'm going to show next. But this would be the tarot timeline. And if that is the tarot timeline is correct this way, then that kind of reaffirms what I was saying earlier a little bit, that this is more of a picture, probably a flashcard deck or a picture deck for or storytelling deck, not really for tarot reading, probably with the gods and goddesses and heroes and things like that. And the Metelli was, I believe, is more of a gaming deck, or that gaming deck, where you card gaming deck. So I think that for sure the Visconti Sforzis and the Kerry Yale Madrone is okay. So the Kerry Yale Madrone is right before this Visconti Sforzis. So this Kerry Yale Visconti or the Madrone, it would be right before this one. So it would be this one, the Kerry Yale Madrone, Visconti Sforza, Solabusca, Metelli. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, but yeah, so it kind of reaffirms what I was, my theory was earlier, though, about the Solabusca and the Madrone. I was kind of making a comment saying, I think that the Solabusca was more of a storytelling deck, and the Metelli was more of a gaming deck. And whereas the Visconti Sforza and the Kerry Yale Visconti was probably more for tarot reading, though. So that would reaffirm everything that I was a little bit saying earlier. So there you go. This one I have not taken out of order, which is the really huge U.S. gaming system, Kerry Yale Visconti. I really want the mini gala version of this deck. This deck I could not keep my hands off. I really wanted. Oh, where is my? Where's my full card? Did I have the full card in here? I think I'm missing a card downstairs. Oh, right there. It's like I'm missing a card. I know I'm missing a card. So yeah, Kerry Yale Visconti or the Madrone. The Kerry Yale Visconti is. I'm waiting for mine and come in too. I really want this deck in the mini gala version. I could not wait for the mini gala version. Yes, but this is one that I am totally heartthrobbed for. I don't know what it is about the Kerry Yale Visconti or the Madrone that I really love. But this is my favorite one of all the pre-Rider-Waite pre-Marseille decks. Not pre-Rider-Waite, but the pre-Marseille decks. This is my favorite. Because I love the colors, I love the images. I just feel like this is like that one of my soul decks. And unfortunately, this deck is huge, and I know the Emil Gala version is going to be huge too. You'll be floored. Man, Gala is very yeah, I want that one. Patrick. But this is the one that one of the decks that I really love and I really wanted to work with, and I just absolutely am in love with it. And I really want the El Mini Gala version, regardless of missing majors and stuff. Does not have the missing cards. Yeah, I want it regardless. That's my problem. I want it regardless versus the missing majors. I want it regardless of the any of those missing cards that it has in there. But just the colors in this deck and the Il Minigallo version is like so worth it. And I just really, really want that version of the deck. I really like this version. Don't get me wrong. The US Gaming Systems did a very good job, but I have seen Patrick's walkthrough with this version, which is the US Gaming System, versus the Il Minigallo version of this deck, and I just said, oh my gosh, how can you not have that version of this deck? Yes, I really love the Carrie Yale or the Madrone, in this version of the Madrone, but I just really, 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 really would like the Il Minigallo though. That would be like my, oh yes. And so you have the full deck and scan the missing cards in the watercolor paper. Yes, yes. And so, if when you're talking about Tarot Addicts Unite in this video, I really, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say, I would use this one for client readings. Whereas the Il Minigallo version, I think I would use it for more myself as more of an oracle-y reading. When I mean by oracle-y reading, meaning I would still read it as tarot or read it as cards, but I'm not gonna read it as like that traditional. Yes, I know, right? That traditional. I won't use it as the same way as that traditional tarot card. So like the Rider-Waite-Smith, I would read it differently than the Rider-Waite-Smith. Whereas this one I could almost read as, for a client or a client reading as a client reading as a just a regular, like a pip deck. I love the knights in this and the extra knights and the extra pages. It is just like charming. Oh my god. I saw that when I saw this learned about that. I was like, "Oh my god, that is like the best ever." And I really love the minors, but you lose that beautiful blue, that royal blue that the Gallo version has. So yeah. So yeah, this one would be more of my client reading deck, or readings that I would do for myself or others, if I wanted to do more, have a complete 78 or 78. It's actually 68, 86, I think, right? 86. Yeah, 86. It's actually a 86 deck. So that's what I would do. It would be a self-use deck if I got the Minigallo version for my own entertainment. All right, and then I will immediately jump right into. I'm trying to figure out the order of events here with the timelines and dates of my tarot decks. My timelines and dates for my tarot decks. I think this one is still the 1800s ish, so I'm gonna safe to say that this is gonna be after this. So here we have my two historically recreation Marseille decks, and I actually really love both of them. This one is the 1736 Tarot Marseille, Francisco Chausson, 36. I said that already. Okay. And this is another US Gaming System deck recreation. And I know that US Gaming Systems right now on their US Gaming System sites have some other decks, Marseille decks that are really, really cool out there that you would any tarot collector would really want. This is also going to be out of order, everyone. I use this deck pretty hard, so it's going to be out of order. But I really like I'm out of focus here. if I really wanted to do uh like a client reading or a tarot reading, and I wanted to use a Marseille deck, this is usually the one that I kind of gravitate towards. It's either that or the next one that I'm going to pull out. And this one, unfortunately, is a $200 or $300 tarot deck now, but it wasn't when I bought it. This was only like a $25 tarot deck when I bought it. But this one for sure is a very expensive deck, secondhand. And this one I actually I pulled a sacred seed. If you look there on the bottom, you can see a little dot on the minors, where it's the reversals and stuff. So I did that. But this is one of my favorite Marseille decks. I just like the historical goodiness of this deck. This deck is very plain. It's very plain as far as the colors. The colors are very plain. Like it's straight up blue, straight up red, and straight up green and yellow. And so those are the other keeping them coming, yes. And so the Marseille system is a French system, and I don't really know all the historical nuances of the Marseille decks, but I really love the Marseille decks. And I have some other Marseille recreations and things like that, and it's kind of funny because I had a few live chats, like last year's live chats or a few months ago live chats. Now, I had a few live chats ago, and I was showing off my Marseille decks and proudly showing off my Marseille decks, and everybody from the chats were making fun of how ugly ugly the traditional Marseille people look. And that they are have big hunkers. They got big hunkers, and I keep getting my thing out of focus, so I'm gonna have to do this. Okay. Focus. So they got big honkers, like nose, and they have very like that ugly nose and the big eyes and the disproportionate hands and stuff like that. And so they look they're very ugly, but the color palette is very simple, and I really love this the Marseille system, regardless of the ugliness of the people. And they are definitely people that your mother could love. Yeah, he's a very ugly woman, and that's the king. That kind of stuff. And so it's kind of funny seeing some of these. They're not supermodels, and back then for sure. And I think of things like what was that, Alexander Dumas with the Three Musketeers, and the what was the Count of Monte Cristo, when I think of these the woodblock art leans itself to a little to the ugly being referred to. Yeah, okay. So when we got that one as the ugly recreation, or the ugly tarot decks, they're not hand drawn, they're wood blocks. They're carved onto the wood blocks, and then they're printed onto the tarot deck. And they probably, it was a way for them to mass produce a tarot deck back then. So that was their way of mass production. So this deck, the probably had many many, many copies of this deck floating around there. You know, like people had back in France and with the gypsies and things like that, and they probably this was like that first real. The wood blocks were all about the mass production, and it was it was the gypsy people of France, France, that had these decks, and I don't think that this deck was the deck of royalties. By any stretch of the imagination, I think this was definitely like the deck of the common folk, because when you look at things like the Cariel Visconti or this Visconti Sforza, even the Solabuscas and the Terracino Metellis and things like that, they were probably more higher quality. They were hand drawn. They look more hand drawn to me, and they're probably more of a higher quality deck. And it was somebody's prized possession that carried through the generations. Whereas this one was definitely all about the mass production of the 1700s. That they just painted on the cards, and they just used the wood blocks and just go bam, 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 and like an assembly line. You know, the first assembly line deck, or one of the first ones. I shouldn't say the first ones, but one of the first ones. Whereas, okay, and then the second one I'm going to show, and this one is whereas this is a 1736 Marseille. This one I'm going to show next is a 1840 Marseille. So you got to think that this is like 100-year difference just right here in the decks alone. And this one is a El Mini Gallo deck, and this one is it really is my favorite El Mini Gallo deck. Not is my second favorite or first favorite. I don't know. It's one of my favorite El Mini Gallo decks of all time, regardless of the card stock and things like that. This one is more classic. This one's 100 years later, and this one is probably still wood block. You know, the old wood blocks. When you're talking about tarot decks, yeah, this is the upright. I'm like, oh, where's the upright? And this is laminate more for the El Mini Gallo decks. And this is the reason why this one is my favorite is because when you're talking about the prettiness of the people and the colors in this deck, it is phenomenal. It's absolutely gorgeous. And according to Osvaldo Minigazzi, this one is upright, whereas I would have said this one was upright, you know, here this way, but he would have said this one is upright. So it's interesting. This is so the colors in this particular version or this particular deck, the Grumpo, what was it, the Gutenberg, Tarocco di Gutenberg Milano deck. And this one is my favorite of all the Marseilles because of the colors, the faces. And this one, I think by the Gutenberg name, I'm guessing this one is German. This is not French like the other one. I think this one would be German. German version of the Marseille decks. And I just absolutely love the colors. I don't know if it's showing up on this webcam, but it is very beautiful. His faces are beautiful. I think the cardstock laminate is very, very nice, and it shuffles beautifully. This is just like that perfect Marseille deck. And I just absolutely love the simplicity of the color palettes. I don't know if this one would have been also a mass-produced, you know, woodblock deck or not. It probably was, because I think this one was also a woodblock deck, but this one you almost could say was done a little bit more mindfully. I'm not saying that the French version is not mindful in their wood block productions, but you know, when everybody says that's an ugly person and things like this one has definitely had a lot more mindfulness when it comes to wood block cuts, because you could definitely see like here that the faces are a lot more detailed. Maybe this deck in particular was on a much bigger cardstock. That's probably what I was thinking. Yes, better production, he says. It was mass produced by Better Production, says Patrick. And I think this he's correct. And I think that this one would have been whereas the other one would have been like the poor people of that had no money of France. This one would have been like that little step above that. They probably had a real skilled artist, or they were very skilled artisans making this deck. That would, and I love that death card. Oh my god, he's blue, he's green. Look at that. He's just so cute. So yeah, I think the production when you're talking about expensive decks to make at the time, this was probably a very expensive deck to make for more mass-produced deck to make, because I think the artisan was a very skilled craftsman or a skilled artiste, whereas you could almost arguably say that the other one was not so good. So I love this one, and it shuffles like a dream. It's all El Menegado. El Menegado. Decks shuffle great. Say El Menegado 5 million times, 10 times fast. Go. So yeah, this deck really, really, really shuffles beautifully. Oh my gosh. And it's one of my favorites of all time, or me favorite Marseille deck of all time. He was from Germany, moved to Milan, and made this deck. Came with more advanced German craftsmanship and techniques. See, I was correct. That was pretty good guess at work there for me. I don't know much of the historical nuances, whereas Patrick will know more inside and out of that kind of stuff. And this one here, the last one that I'm going to show for the historical decks, is the El Menegalo and Nabi Tarot, or the Tarot of the Masters. This is the Nabi Tarot, or the Tarot of the Masters. I've been sitting here watching my Visconti Hooker deck all time. I love Visconti Hooker decks. They're great. And so this one is one of my favorite decks. I'll tell you why. The card stock in this particular Menegalo version is like amazing. It's like that paper card stock. Some of those, it's just, can you hear that? Now you hear it. It is just amazing. And this one, I think, is more hand drawn. This is the Tarot of the Masters. What is it? Los Scarabeo has a mass-produced version of this, and they call it Tarot of the Masters, but it's really the Nabi Tarot. And it's 18. This one is in 1800s still. Maybe the Vecchetti. Yeah, Vecchetti Tarot. This is my favorite as far as coloring goes. This is like an Italian-based deck, and so it is just absolutely gorgeous. The Il Menegalo, 1893. So when you think of 1840 and 1893 is almost 80 years after the Gutenberg. So yes, this one was hand drawn. I don't know if this one was mass produced. In that, in the same way as the other ones were, the Mercedes decks were, but this one for sure is an Italian-based deck, and it's in Turin, Italy. I'm reciting what Patrick is saying. It's from Turin, Italy, and it just the colors and there's a certain sense of humor that this deck has that is just undeniable. Like the impaled guy over here. This was mass produced and they're engravings, not hand drawings, but then watercolored. Okay, so they were watercolored and engravings. When the Golden Dawn, I think it's really close to this deck, right? I think it might be Tigers Abyss. I think the Golden Dawn was more based on the Osvaldo Fame, I think, decks versus the. Oh yeah. He's correct. I was thinking more of the Osvaldo decks was more the Golden Dawn's cup of tea, whereas this one was, I think, still a little bit. I don't know, probably pre Golden Dawn, but this one does definitely have a certain sense of humor and quirkiness to it that is just undeniable. Like the impaled man right here. And this guy just kind of completely gets notched to death by the boulders and stuff at the tower. And then the pips or the miners are really beautiful too. You know, they got like this beautiful rods, and when the Golden Dawn form, I think, is really close to this deck. Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the imageries are very close, you know, very similar with the Thoth decks and stuff. But I would say it was more okay, the Golden Dawn was definitely influenced by this deck as well as the Worth decks. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is that the Golden Dawn was influenced by this deck as well as the Worth decks, which is the Oswaldo Worth decks. I don't have any Oswaldo Worth decks. I've been eyeing them on eBays and things like that, and even on Amazon, they have not so bad Osvaldo Worth decks, but this deck was definitely probably an influence on their imagery for sure, because some of the imagery is definitely more Golden Dawn based and stuff, but it definitely is quirky and has a sense of humor. And I think that the illustrated pips. Okay, as Water Decks and the Veticetti and even the Scolabusa were influences to Rider-Waite-Smith, yes. And then Tiger Best says, I think it's inspired them the look of the Queen of Swords and depicted the head and the back. Yep. And so this moon, I don't I know that that the what was it the one deck that I have, the Terra Prague, they influenced their moon card based on these old ideas of was it Demetri? It was one of Greek goddesses or the goddesses of the I forgot the goddess's name. But it's like influences the moon card. But this deck is absolutely gorgeous. The colors, they even have like the poison dart frogs, and this one is definitely beautiful. I got this one off of eBay, and I love the sword's handles. You know, look at that. Oh my god, look at the sword handles. Those are really cool. He's a very look at his face, the craftsman. It's kind of like the and then also I think the quartz in this deck in particular are more character based, whereas I think the images of some of the older quartz and stuff, they are very ambiguous a little bit. They have some very ambiguous meanings. I'm not saying they're ambiguous because they're not. They mean like a Page of Swords means something even then in a Marseille deck. But I think it was really in this deck there was really big characters, you know, drawn like the king of Pentacles or the King of the Denari is going to be more of that archetype, and this is really has more archetypal quirks than some of the other older decks does. And that was something very interesting about this deck versus some of the other older decks that I have. That the quartz are even more archetypal. Is the 14 Madrone Visconti Solabuska. Yeah. The Solabuska, I think, was more of like a picture deck, in my opinion. And it's very archetypal. But I do think that as far as a tarot reading goes, or as a tarot deck goes, this one is more based on the archetypes, like archetypes of a certain, like a personality archetype. 1500s Evie, you need the Budapest Tarot. Okay, I need to get that one. I've seen that one, and I know which one he's talking about. And that one's a hard one to get a hold of. And this one's one of my favorites, actually. I love the Ugly Sea Monster. Shoot, what deck is this? I missed it. This one is the Nabi Tarot or the Tarot of the Masters. 70s Chauson. Okay. I'm just reading also Patrick's thing. And I really love this the little details of the deck here. Look at the color details. Just look at that. The angel, even the little mountains in the background with the castles and stuff, with the people coming out of those coffins. Oh my goodness. And this is the King of Swords, and I think this is more like to a warrior maybe. This is a beautiful Two of Cups here. And this is a Hermit card, and I think they call it Fermenta, maybe. It has to do with Father Time, I think, more. I'm sorry, I love this deck so much. The colors, the art, this deck is like, speaks to my soul. And he's a really interesting death card. I really love him with all these riches instead of for reaping riches versus reaping skulls and stuff and some of the other ones. And so he's more of like an accountant, is the page of or even a gambler. Oh my goodness, look at that. Gambling. With a page of pentacles there. And the teacups. Look at those dang teacups. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Wrong about the 1700s. You need the 1700s deck too, which is the Chauson. Okay. And this the Strength. Cavalier. I really love historical decks, and this is something that Patrick and I have very much in common. We really love our historical goodie decks. I really like my Rider-Waite-Smith decks. I really like my Thoth decks. What decks don't I like? What decks don't I like? But the historical decks, at least the Men and Gala decks, you could say they're coming from a place of quality, and they're coming from a place. Okay, go ahead. Have a good one. But yeah, this is definitely beautiful colors. Look at it. Look at those colors. Ah! Look at that bleeding heart. All those swords gonna stab him. And those handles of the swords are beautiful. Wait a minute. Oh, that is... Evie's Master Lives, 14 hundreds Madrone, Visconti Sforza, Solo Busca 1500s, none. And the 1600s Metelli, 1700s Chaussen, and the 1800s Gutenberg and the Vichetti. Yep. And I want you guys to see this little bit down below with the little cupids and stuff. Oh my god. The little naked babies riding each other and stuff in this deck. Oh my god, this deck is a dirty deck. I'm joking, everyone. I'm really joking. But yeah, the little symbolisms in this deck is just like amazing. Come on. Refocus. Come on. Refocus. Okay. And this one is the one where she bags the head, you know, and this one actually is what's hilarious is Saint Judith. And that makes me laugh so hard when I've learned about this because this card really means something to me because I didn't know that when I was naming Judith that there was going to be a lot of these little associations going to be floating around, and this one was one of them. This one is Saint Judith with the Queen of Swords, and she cut off his head. And it kind of reminds me of my daughter Judith and the powerful queen power that she has of fighting power that she has. The 1900s Rider Waite Smith and Thoth, and those count as historical texts for sure. Patrick, and I got to see your what was it, the Taylor Starrow nice cards. Thank you. And then I really think that we should see your Pam A or Pam B or Pam C deck, Patrick. But yeah, these are very beautiful, and I really love the colors of the cards. And they shuffle like a dream. They shuffle like a dream. Uh-oh. See, they shuffle really nice and very well. The Rider Waite Smith Monk, I guess for me is Pam B coming then. Patrick, you're gonna make me wait till August? You're not gonna make me wait till August, Patrick. I gotta see what you have that I don't have. I gotta see this. I gotta know. I gotta know, Patrick. You don't understand. We're itching in our skins. We can't wait for August. Oh. All right. Well, everyone, those are my historical deck collections and my El Mini Gala decks. And I don't think I have any more behind me. Oh. I don't think I have any more behind me. And then I would get into my is one deck a month living. Oh my goodness. All right. But yeah, those are my historical deck collections, everyone. I really probably should boot on off because I still have kids and I still have a nurse downstairs, even though she's so much better than Paula, and she actually is letting me have the time out of my day and letting me have the time of my moment just to sit here and talk to you guys. I really do need to start heading off here. For all those historical okay, let me do the one last thing before I leave. One last thing. We're gonna do one last tarot timeline of events as a closing answer of the video. So apparently the first deck of the oldest decks is the Cariel Visconti or the Visconti Madrone. And the second deck in the timeline of events in history would be the Visconti Sforza. And then we would have the Solobusca as our next deck in our deck timeline. The Metele is our next one, or that following one. The next deck we would have would be the Tarraco. Not Tarraco. It's the Tarot de Marseille, Francisco Chausson, 1736. In that next deck of the timeline event. Then would be the Gutenberg. It would be the Tarraco de Gutenberg. If I had my camera focused. Come on, camera focused. Yes, we got it now. Tarraco de Gutenberg. And then the last would be the Tarot the Master, or the Nabi Tarot from El Minigallo. Okay, so most of these decks are going to be available either on Amazon or eBay, or even straight from the El Minigallo site. The only one deck that I have or two decks I think I would have in this collection right here, that maybe three. I lied. 3 decks. The only 3 decks that I would have right here that would be really, 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 really hard to get your hands on is my Tarot de Marseille Francisco Chausson 1736 edition of this deck. US Gaming Systems collector's edition of this deck would be a very hard one to get your hands on for right now. And then another one, apparently, according to Wayward Witch, was the Solobusca is sold out. This particular version of the Solobusca is sold out and is selling for a ridiculous amount of money on the tarot market right now, for like $200+. And then I have this one probably might be a harder one in the next few months to get your hands on, because I think there's still some. If you go on Amazon right now, I know this one is still like $35 or $45 on Amazon if you get it today. But once this sells out, the Metele sells out, it's going to be a biscuit monkey to get a hand. Yes, it's a great version of the Solobuscas is also available by Scarlet Imprint too. But if this one is still available, the Metele version of the Lo Scarabeo is still available. Hold on. Yeah. All right, everyone. I am going to wrap it up. And so the last one that would be a really hard one to get your hands on would be the Visconti Sforza deck. Would be that's not the US Gaming version of this deck. The Visconti Sforza the El Minigallo versions are still available through El Minigallo. Don't get me wrong, but this one, the Tarocchi or the Tarocchi version of this deck, I think is not really available anymore through their sites. And I know that the US Gaming System version of this deck is still out there, but it will be about the same size as the really monstrous Cariel Visconti Madrone that I have here. So unfortunately, I have to go. and because I had an urgent knock on the door, and I'm just putting some info out there that these decks are still available. You just have to go look through Los Scarabeo, look on Amazon. eBay is a really good one. In the Millie Gallo site, if I haven't mentioned it already, it is always great. Thanks. I love you all. Kisses, hugs. Bye.